Sir, if you're gonna put that in your mouth, you gotta pay for it.
Who would have thought that Terrifier, a disturbing movie when somebody gets sawed in half, could become this? I'll admit, I don't actively seek out movies like this, I'm not opposed to it, but the original Terrifier is not the kind of thing I'd watch again, as it seems to be aimed at a certain kind of audience. The synopsis of that movie is basically Art the Clown terrorizing 3 women, brutally killing 2, maiming 1, and in the end getting away. If not for the high levels of gore and the infamous hacksaw scene, I don't think it would have gotten the attention it did, and personally, I wasn't too interested in any sequel. I do want to emphasize I am not against anybody liking that movie, and I've watched many movies of the same nature, but if in the end that's all it is, I tend to think the only reason they made it is to see how far they can take things. I'm probably one of the few people to prefer All Hallows Eve, but Terrifier 2 is a completely different case. By that I mean, not just a movie about a homicidal clown that puts Pennywise and Sweet Tooth to shame, and actually has a plot leading to a climax you'd never see coming. Now, don't get me wrong, it still has all the over-the-top violent scenes, but if that's all you came to see, you may be a bit disappointed. It does have scenes that top the previous movie, but because of how far they're taken, they almost have the opposite effect. I'd actually say the first movie is by far the darkest, as this one can be almost laughable at times, and given that there will be a third movie, I question how far they could possibly take this. If anything, Terrifier 2 is a unique case amongst the genre, and given the 2-hour and 18-minute runtime, almost an hour longer than the original, it should be somewhat clear it's not the same kind of movie. The synopsis is kind of the same for a lot of it until the end, when things go batshit insane. And due to this having a plot, along with a much more engaging cast of characters, it is, to me, clearly the better movie. Still, some don't agree, and I guess we'll see if there's any merit to that. This is Terrifier 2. It's too bad I can't show a lot of this. We open right where the last movie left off, with the courier who had the unlucky job of examining Art the Clown, again played by David Howard Thornton, but despite barely being able to speak, he has a plan.
911, where's your emergency?
Well, given my tongue seems to be gone, and the homicidal clown is about to kill me, I'd say the emergency is that I thought this call would do any good. The movie then tries to make us think they're not going to show us this death, even though they do in full detail. And it is interesting that he pulls out his eye, seemingly to replace his missing eye, and then just leaves it. I mean, yeah, you can't really replace a missing eye and then have it function, but then again, there is a hole in his brain. He then heads to the local dry cleaner, as you would after such activities, and we meet a new character, the Little Pale Girl, played by Amelia McLean, and inspired by Art the Clown cosplays. She's not visible to anybody but Art, implying she's some kind of evil entity, but as the movie goes on, you're not really going to question that too much. Given the filming locations, this does seem about right. We then cut ahead a year and see Sienna, played by Lauren LaVera, apparently the only choice for this part, is finishing up her Angel Warrior Halloween costume, but damn it, she needs a tape measure, and her bitch mom, played by Sarah Voigt, is too busy to help her find it. And no, I don't call her that because of the tape measure, but we'll get to that. The costume was designed by her father, who recently died of a brain tumor, but her brother Jonathan, played by Elliott Fullam, has his own plans to dress up as Art the Clown himself, but they say it's disrespectful. No, really, it kind of is.
You don't see people dressing up as Jeffrey Dahmer or Charles Manson.
Charles Manson technically never killed anyone.
What kind of fucked up logic is that? That's like saying Jigsaw never killed anybody, and that is a thing, isn't it? We see that he's become somewhat fixated on him since finding pictures of his victims in his father's sketchbook, and besides, it's too late to get another costume, so what are you gonna do? Well, for now, we're gonna transition from a commercial ad to a dream sequence because it's obviously a dream sequence given the picture of art with children, because otherwise it'd be beyond distasteful.
Gobble up your order quick before it runs away, 'cause food's a little funny at the Clown Cafe.
They're all gonna die.
Sienna is also there too, along with a nun telling them to feed a homeless guy, and a kid eating cereal with razor blades.
New Art Krispies from Sugar Plum. Fun little surprises in every bite.
Which David Howard Thornton provides the voice for, because I guess they figured he may as well say something, as the clown never actually talks. He does make a guest appearance though, giving free candy to everybody, followed by shooting everybody repeatedly, killing everyone but Sienna, because after all, it is her dream. But she remembers the razor blade cereal has a special surprise inside, which is supposed to be a painful scene when she tries to get it, but the problem is it's only a dream, which we definitely know by now, and even if it was real, you'd probably just dump the box out and not stick your hand in it, so it's kind of stupid. But the surprise happens to be a sword, which deflects the flames, setting her wings on fire in real life, which is quite problematic as neither of the kids know how to use a fucking extinguisher. They pass this off as her accidentally leaving the candles lit, but given the dream involving fire, the sword, and the fact that in reality a killer clown disappeared after supposedly being shot in the head, leaving his name on the mirror in blood, maybe, just maybe, that's not the case. Oh, and remember what I said about the mom being a bitch?
What are you, fucking stupid? You have no idea. So it just spontaneously combusted out of thin air?
You mean I still have to go?
What did I say? Between your chemicals and your heat guns and staying up till 4 o'clock in the fucking morning doing God only knows what.
You would think she'd be grateful that her daughter built the costume opposed to spending real money on one, and the fact that she hasn't burned up. At least considering what movie this is, a vile fate surely awaits her, right? Right? Well, anyhow, the sword is still completely intact, so probably means something too. And the next day at school, Jonathan's asshole friends have found a dead possum and tricked some girl into looking at it, thus making Jonathan feel bad, which is irrelevant after this scene. But Art the Clown and the Pale Girl have brought the possum into the school and throw it at Jonathan, then disappear, leaving him to take the blame. We then meet Sienna's very unlucky friend Allie, played by Casey Hartnett, and the slightly less unlucky friend Brooke, played by Kailey Hyman.
She had a meltdown on the show, right? And then backstage, she went full-on psycho and mauled Monica Brown with her bare hands.
Basically, they're discussing the events of the previous movie, which didn't happen till the end of that movie, meaning they're quite recent now, while also foreshadowing what may be to come.
What, you ever see photos of those transplant faces? Looking like Mr. Potato Head? Fuck that shit.
She doesn't appreciate the in-depth details, but a nice trip to the costume store should get their minds off things. I mean, the wings do have to be replaced after all, and Art the Clown is there, alarming to nobody, I guess, and he even brings her bag. I mean, she is alarmed, obviously, but the guy behind the counter should be too. I mean, this is not what people do. She eventually manages to leave, and as you can imagine, it doesn't end too well for the good old vendor, but it does lead to a comedic scene nonetheless. Jonathan has been banned from going out on Halloween, as his bitch mom doesn't believe he didn't do it, but he does show Sienna their dad's sketchbook depicting the events of the first movie, and something that really shouldn't be ignored.
He created this character for you. He gave you that sword right before he died. It's like he saw this coming.
She, of course, thinks it's just a coincidence and doesn't believe that he truly saw Art the Clown, even though she just saw him in the costume shop, and thinks it was just some kids playing a joke. Okay, I know we can't really complain about this kind of thing in a slasher movie, but as we'll soon see, this is not your average slasher movie, and she just saw the clown in her dream, and then the shop, and as you can see, she's not passing it off as nothing, so maybe you want to think about this.
That's fucking stupid!
She does try to convince her mom that Jonathan didn't vandalize the school, but she is a bitch, so that goes nowhere. And the clown then pays a visit to Allie, who, now that you think about it, may kind of deserve her infamous fate. I mean, one, when a crazy guy who doesn't speak shows up on Halloween wanting candy, it may be a good idea to just give him candy. I know the economy is tough, but again, probably not worth it. And when you see he has a bag full of blood-stained weapons, it may be a good idea to get the fuck out of there. Instead, she assumes it'll be fine. The clown does come back. She decides to run upstairs opposed to the convenient exit, and what happens next cannot be shown in any way, shape, or form, so allow me to express my thoughts on the scene with some more uplifting content. The scene at hand is definitely one of the most over-the-top scenes in any horror movie, let alone this franchise, but I don't really think it's all that dark, nor do I think it's the best, given that's what you've came to see. It's partly due to just how insane the scene is, coming across as being ridiculous, leading to people in the theater outright laughing, and most notably, the actress is not the best at screaming. I don't believe that's how you'd sound in this situation, and if you compare this to the hacksaw scene from the first movie, well, to me, that's the darkest scene. Not only because it isn't outright stupid, but also her mouth was gagged. She was unable to speak, and I think it should have been the same thing here. Obviously, if you could mimic the way you would sound, that'd be great, but that's not something everybody can pull off, and I think with this movie, they definitely missed the mark on that. I get they have to ramp up the gore in some way, but to me, despite getting all kinds of attention, I don't believe this is the best death scene by any means. If it was a horror comedy, maybe, but simply having a clown does not make it a comedy. In fact, does this generation even know clowns weren't meant to be scary? Hey kids, let's go to the circus and see the clowns, eh? What? No, they're clowns, they're fun, they're not gonna do anything violent. I mean, well then, if not, could you at least like the video? It's right down there, and subscribe if you enjoy me analyzing scenes of body mutilation. Of course, the scene isn't really over just yet, but first I gotta ask, why is the bitch mom okay with her costume? I mean, given how strict and overall mean she is, I really don't get this.
Your tits are practically popping out.
I sense favoritism, and for me, that's the final straw, so please let her death come soon. So now, we gotta get the happy clips back out, because, Ellie's mother comes home to find the clown playing with her mutilated body, and I think it goes without saying the laughter has all but ended, and it turns out she's not dead. She speaks, calls out for her mother, and this may be the darkest thing in the franchise. I mean, it's still kind of ridiculous, but you know.
Well, that's the way it goes.
Obviously, nobody questions her not picking up the phone, as they wouldn't, and at the Halloween party, we meet Brooke's very unlucky boyfriend, Jeff, played by Charlie McKeven. His costume is simply foreshadowing events to come, not sure what that's about, but her dancing, imitating a psychopath, does lighten the mood. Then the bitch mom randomly tries being nice, but that doesn't last too long. And again, to all you parents watching, don't take notes on this.
He was sick. Why can't you understand?
Tell kids to get over their dead family being insane. Check. Physical contact, important.
Don't you ever say that to me again.
Use foul language constantly and punish them if they do. We can't forget that step.
Jonathan, you get back here. Jonathan!
And if they run off into the psychopath-infested night, congratulations! You are a parent worthy of a gruesome death. Can we please get to it? Well, first we gotta establish that Brooke spiked Sienna's drink because that's what friends do, I guess. And that Jonathan supposedly vandalized the car, which of course he didn't, meaning Art the Clown is on the premises, and the death of the bitch mom finally awaits. Okay, to all of you feminists who complain that this movie is sexist because women tend to get the worst fates, you can't say that now, can you? Her death is practically painless. I don't even need the happy clips, so why did they make her so unlikable just so she could die like this? Is it some kind of sick joke? Wait a minute. It is a sick joke. Now I get it. Good job, movie. It's definitely a good example of the last thing you say to your son not being positive. And again, Jonathan decides running upstairs is better than the front door. He does at least try to get the sword, but is knocked out instead, and Sienna begins to lose it after seeing the pale girl herself. So they have to leave, and Brooke is not happy about the whole night being ruined, meaning we at least have some death to look forward to, and the pale girl mimics Jonathan's voice to trick them into coming to the old carnival.
Great, fine, whatever, I don't care. It's not like this night can get any worse.
I could see myself reasonably betting relatively high that that's not the case. Sienna goes off alone to find Jonathan, and we learn that their father was actually somewhat abusive toward the end, which does explain why they don't like Jonathan obsessing over him, but I still say his character is somewhat underdeveloped. I stand by the fact that their mom is a bitch, but Jonathan does get blamed for a number of bad things, and we're given no reason to believe he'd do anything like that. Being the fact that he's the most intelligent character, I guess they need an excuse to not listen to him, but for the most part, the only thing he's obsessed with is Art the Clown, and I guess that warrants treating him like a delinquent. It's not a big deal, but there could have been more development. Sienna goes off to search at the Terrifier, it's got the font and everything, and Art cuts off Jeff's dick. And that's about it. I mean, that does sound pretty bad, but apparently they were gonna have him blow on it like a balloon, but opted to keep that part out. And Brooke's escape is severely hindered when she decides to not run anywhere but a building with no exit.
Positively shocking.
It's just, you got the whole carnival. You could literally hide under something and you'd probably be fine. For that reason, the fact that she's not likable and Art has a cool new mace, I'm heavily on his side with this. He also has his handy acid on hand, so you can take a guess to how this turns out. But Sienna is there too, and so is Jonathan, so she stabs him with a nail and tells him to run. She's not really much of a match for him just yet, and is easily knocked out. But not only does he not kill her, but he also leaves his trusty mace behind, allowing her to subdue him, and from this point on, the movie is, well, let's just say not the first movie.
It's what Daddy saw. I think you're the only one who can stop him.
Meaning we're gonna have a big epic conclusion where a lot of crazy shit goes down, and the brutal tone you'd expect from this movie is definitely not lost. Art still has his signature whip and uses it on both of them a lot, but Sienna in true badass fashion manages to get the whip, and watching Art have his own weapon used against him is a satisfying scene. It's a bit redundant as we know that's not gonna kill him, nor is the shotgun blast. And Art does eventually manage to kill Sienna with her father's sword, throw her into the dream sequence from earlier, and attempt to eat Jonathan. Yeah, that's where this goes. But the sword then lights up, allowing Sienna to resurrect as well, climb back to the surface, and cut off Art's head. And that, my friends, is one hell of a climax. The pale girl then takes the head away, but she's currently not hostile, so happy ending! I mean, that's not the end. A $15 million box office against $250,000 budget means it's not the end. And a mid-credit scene shows us Victoria now institutionalized, giving birth to Art's living severed head, meaning Terrifier 3 is definitely happening. And anticipated for that I am, as Terrifier 2 is pretty damn good. I think I made my thoughts clear on this by now, but to summarize, it's a unique kind of film. I wasn't opposed to the first movie, but I just don't think it was as impressive as many people made it out to be. Excessive gore is not enough to automatically call something good, but I think Terrifier 2 manages to balance that with an engaging plot, and a climax I don't think anybody saw coming. Obviously, a lot of questions remain to be answered, and hopefully they will be soon, but the plot does keep me invested enough, and aside from the finale going on a bit too long, I don't have that many complaints. I do think Jonathan needed a bit more development, and maybe he'll get some eventually, and their mom was obsessively mean for no reason, but aside from that, the characters are pretty good. Sienna is a great lead who I was rooting for by the end. With the first movie I could have cared less, and David Howard Thornton really makes the clown feel unique. He may not speak, but his expressions definitely get the job done, and as somebody who's part of the 1% who still think clowns are kind of funny, I can't say that rings true here. Unfortunately, one big issue is there are some funny scenes here, and they really shouldn't be. It may just be one scene, but it's the most infamous scene in the movie. That was the idea, and I'm not fond of it. It's taken way too far, the screaming is not well acted, and if Terrifier 3 tries to top this, I can't say I really like the sound of that. Luckily, the other kills work just fine, and if they stick with that kind of thing, you have the potential for a great franchise here. I won't be getting my hopes up, I've learned my lesson by now, but on occasion you do have movies that get better as they go, and it is possible that Terrifier could be that unique case. Or they could run out of ideas and fuck up the whole thing, but they haven't done that yet, and optimistic I definitely am. If you're not afraid of clowns and don't mind a bit of blood, Terrifier 2 is a commendable effort. I'm the analyst, and remember kids, when you get older, maybe have your own kids, don't hit them. Unless they're like demonic or something, don't hit them. It's wrong. So, you've made it to the end. That's an impressive feat indeed. Since you managed that, I guess check out the gaming channel, in which I cover a variety of gaming topics, like analysis videos, such as this one. If you're into that, then press the link in the description. It's that simple.